What if Luffy had Gojo's 6 eyes and Limitless? Would he just be as OP as him? And how would this affect the story of One Piece? In this version, Luffy is born with the 6 eyes already active, meaning he automatically perceives cursed energy or, in the world of One Piece, haki surrounding him. He feels the power of everyone in the room from his very first breath, even though he has no language or framework to make sense of any of it. He simply cries louder than any baby Fuchsia village can remember, while nobody in the room has any idea why. Handed off to Garp almost immediately by Dragon, he grows up under his grandfather's notoriously brutal training, which ends up having an unintended consequence, because the 6 eyes register building haki before every thrown into a ravine impact. The intended shock conditioning barely takes hold. What it accelerates instead is the mastery of the rubber body. The constant real-time awareness of how his own haki flows through him during impact compresses years of physical feedback into months, making him faster at stretching and absorbing force than any Devil Fruit user seen in the series. When Shanks arrives in Fuchsia Village, 6 years old Luffy immediately perceives him as something on a completely different level, with conquerors, armament, and observation all held in perfect, controlled harmony. He also senses something distinctly ancient and unusual in the Gomu Gomu no Mi when he eats it. At 7, a quality that reads older and deeper than an ordinary devil fruit, though he cannot interpret what it means, and immediately moves on to stretching his face. When Shanks sacrifices his arm to save Luffy from the Lord of the Coast and departs for good, the 6 eyes capture it as the single clearest and most vivid haki impression of Luffy's young life. It is the enormous, unfiltered surge of pure will behind a selfless choice made without a moment's hesitation. From that point forward, the straw hat carries more than sentimental value. To Luffy and his 6 eyes, it holds the exact shape and feeling of that haki. So every time he looks at it, he is not simply remembering a person he admired. He is re-experiencing the precise emotional and spiritual weight of what genuine conviction looks and feels like at the level of haki itself. Garp takes Luffy to Mount Kalubo next and leaves him with Curly Dadan, who is already raising her other ward, a cold and hostile boy who spends the first 3 months actively putting Luffy in danger just to make a point. From the very first meeting, though, the 6 eyes shows Luffy something that stops him cold. This hostile kid has Conqueror's haki, a king's quality, one of the rarest things in the world, and it is sitting inside someone who wants nothing to do with him, which Luffy finds so deeply interesting that he starts following Ace around with even more determination than before. The decade that follows on Mount Kalubo is the foundation of everything. Ace and Sabo's haki signature becomes the 2 most familiar presences in Luffy's perpetual world after Shanks. Ace's haki runs hot, volcanic, barely contained, the emotional profile of someone carrying weight they have not yet figured out how to hold. Sabo runs differently, precise and curious, and always reorganizing itself towards something. The 6 eyes are never something Luffy tries to explain to anyone. He does not have the language for it. He simply knows with a certainty no one else in the world can share exactly how alive his brothers are. Then comes the day the great terminal burns. The world nobles are visiting the Goa kingdom, and the nobles of Hightown are quietly arranged for the human wreckage at the city's edge to be incinerated ahead of their arrival. In the chaos, Sabo escapes from his family's home and tries to sail away on a stolen fishing boat. A world noble named Yalmak, offended that a commoner would dare cross his path, fires a bazooka at the boat. Dogra sees it happen from the harbor and comes back to tell them. When Luffy registers Sabo's absence through the 6 eyes, it is qualitatively different from any grief he has ever known. Not a departure, not a fading, but the sudden, complete disappearance of a haki signature that had been present in his perpetual world every single day for years. Memory can blur around absence. The 6 eyes cannot. He does not get to be uncertain about what happened. The warmth is just gone. He cries on the coast at night, and Ace sits with him, and neither of them says anything useful. Ace leaves at 17. Luffy is 14. The departure registers as the slow reduction of the largest, hottest haki presence he has known since Shanks. First from Mount Kalubo, then from Dawn Island entirely, then becoming nothing more than a direction in the world he can no longer point to. He trains alone for 3 more years, and in year 2, while working on a long-range attack, he briefly senses an unfamiliar haki signature nearby that vanishes before he can place it. He assumes it is an animal. It is Bartholomew Kuma. Somewhere during those solo years, Luffy's Conqueror's haki erupts for the first time. No dramatic opponent, no pivotal moment, just a large tiger that has him cornered and an unconscious burst that drops every animal in a 20-meter radius and sends the tiger running. He stares at them for a long time afterward. The 6 eyes show him clearly that the burst came from him and that it shares the same quality as what he saw in Ace all those years and what blazed from Shanks the day he lost his arm. He files this away and does not tell Dadan. When Luffy sets sail at 17, he is carrying a decade of observed haki pattern recognition with no formal training in any of it. He knows what fear looks like in haki, what the texture of a fighter about to do something desperate feels like, what pain does to someone's energy signature. He cannot explain any of this. He just experiences it as instinct, and throughout East Blue, the Limitless activates inconsistently, more reflex than technique, flickering in and out depending on his focus. Buggy's chop projectile parts starts slow near Luffy's vitals in a way that baffles both of them, and both of them come up with the wrong explanation. By Arlong Park, the Limitless is doing something clearly visible. Arlong's overwhelming physical strikes lose trajectory as they enter the compression field, and he cannot understand why someone this slow is this hard to hit cleanly. He responds by attacking more violently and less precisely, which helps Luffy considerably, but the field is still nascent at this stage. Arlong's raw force still generates shock impact through slowed strikes, and Luffy takes real punishment. The advantage is evasive and perceptual. It is not impenetrable, and it is important to understand that going into Alabasta. Alabasta is where this scenario has to be honest about what these abilities cannot do, because Crocodile is built specifically to test their limits. The 6 eyes show Luffy's Crocodile's real Haki signature through the sand at all times. He can see exactly where the body is inside the element, but seeing the body and being able to physically contact it are completely different things. Without armament Haki infused into his strikes, his rubber fists still pass through sand regardless of what the 6 eyes show him. And so the first fight ends the same way. Buried, desiccated, left for dead. The second fight is worse. Luffy comes in with water this time, lands several hits, and briefly staggers Crocodile. Then Crocodile stops approaching through space and instead starts draining moisture from the ambient environment. The air, Luffy's body, the palace stones around them. The Limitless intercepts directed approach. It does not control the state of the environment. Luffy is already inside. Crocodile desiccates him from within the field, and Luffy collapses again. 2 fights, 2 losses. The third fight is where it finally resolves, and the resolution is entirely Oda's. Water and blood carried on his person, and deployed with the precision the 6 eyes allow at the exact moment. Crocodile's sand body solidifies. He wins. The Limitless protects him from ground death while he is already poisoned, and that matters. But the mechanism that wins the fight is liquid making Crocodile vulnerable, and rubber force finishing it. The 6 eyes and Limitless were support the whole time, not solutions. Moving into the Grand Line, Enies Lobby is where the Limitless first structurally fails. Luchisaru approaches the threshold of what a nascent, untrained spatial field can process in real time, and Luffy takes real damage from the speed in a way nothing in East Blue prepared him for. More importantly, Rokugan turns out to be a completely different category of problem. Lucci's 6-palm technique propagates concussive force through matter on contact. It does not travel toward Luffy through space, so the Limitless has nothing to intercept. Luffy takes the same devastating internal damage as in canon, and while the 6 eyes help him understand what is happening after the first hit, which reduces how often Luffy can land it, the technique keeps working. He wins through grinding determination and Gear 2 equalizing Soru, and he carries the knowledge that Rokugan exists into every single fight after this one. The road from Water 7 to Marineford passes through Sabaody, Amazon Lily, and Impel Down, and all 3 of them matter for where the 6 eyes are heading. At Sabaody, Luffy's Conqueror Haki erupts publicly for the first time when he punches the World Noble. He feels it building through the 6 eyes before it releases, a rising pressure in his own signature that he is starting to recognize from years of watching it in Ace. He still cannot direct it. It happens anyway. The Kizaru arrives, and the Straw Hats are simply taken apart. Kizaru is a problem the Limitless genuinely cannot solve, because he does not approach through space and instead reconstitutes inside the effective range. And the crew around Luffy has no answer for a Marine Admiral. Kuma intervenes in the aftermath and scatters them. His ability is a contact transfer technique. Once his palm touches Luffy, the repulsion operates at the force transfer level, not as a projectile crossing space. The Limitless has nothing to defend against at the moment of contact, and Luffy lands on Amazon Lily in the same condition as in canon. On Amazon Lily, the Conqueror's Haki erupts again, a larger burst this time, during his fight with Sandersonia and Marigold, dropping most of the arena audience. It is named here, witnessed, and commented on by people who understand Haki. Through the 6 eyes, Luffy watches it happen from the inside in real time, and he is beginning to understand what the pressure that precedes it actually means. The shape of his own Haki, when it surges like this, matches something he has been watching his whole life. Impel Down is 6 levels of the world's most dangerous prison, fought through on a body increasingly destroyed by Magellan's venom. The 6 eyes are hyperactive throughout, every prisoner, guard, and monster registering as a distinct Haki signature, and the cascading threat data becomes exhausting rather than useful at this scale. He uses Conqueror's Haki unconsciously in level 5, knocking out the wolf pack pursuing him and Bon Kure while he is already dying. Ivankov saves him through a process that should have killed him, and the 6 eyes show Luffy his own Haki signature nearly extinguishing and then returning. He does not talk about this afterward. Marineford is everything those arcs have been building toward, and the 6 eyes make it both better and worse than it would otherwise be. Whitebeard's Gura Gura no Mi establishes itself as a genuine problem almost immediately. His shockwaves propagate through the medium itself, treating the island as something that can be grabbed and shifted, which means they do not cross space toward Luffy at all. They are already everywhere. The Limitless offers nothing here. He has to navigate Whitebeard's side of the battlefield the hard way, reading the moment of force generation through the 6 eyes and moving before the ground starts starts shaking. And then Akainu moves toward Ace. The Six Eyes show Luffy the Haki surge before the attack resolves. The full assembly of armament Haki in Akainu's fist completely formed before the arm has even begun to move. He sees what is about to happen before it happens. He is not close enough. The distance is real, and it does not yield to perception. And he watches Ace die knowing it was coming, which is not better than being surprised. It is considerably worse. After that, the Six Eyes just keep running. Whitebeard's signature deteriorating under wounds. Shanks arriving with the same controlled Sun Haki Luffy first saw at age 6, now deployed at its full devastating scale. Every marine sphere registering as suppressed Haki. All of it at once. While Luffy is broken on the ground, throughout the battle, as he fought toward Ace and then lost him, his Conqueror's Haki has been erupting in uncontrolled bursts nearby. Not targeted, not willed, just the pressure of everything he's carrying, expressing itself as force. He survives Marineford the same way he does in canon, through a refusal. The time skip brings 2 years on Rusukaina and Rayleigh, who is the first person in Luffy's life with enough Haki mastery to notice the anomaly the Six Eyes create. Rayleigh cannot identify what he is observing because this phenomenon has no name in the world, but he recognizes that it is real, takes it seriously, and structures training around it rather than against it. He suggests covering the eyes periodically to manage the sensory load. Luffy tries a blindfold for 3 weeks, decides the trade-off is not worth it, and abandons it permanently. Rayleigh adjusts. What Rayleigh observes across 2 years is that Luffy sustains training loads that would exhaust any other student within hours, day after day, with essentially no compounding fatigue. He cannot put a number on the advantage because he has no frame of reference for it, so he just trains Luffy as hard as the training can go, and Luffy keeps going. By the end, all 3 Haki types and their advanced applications are fully developed. He is dramatically stronger than his canon counterpart, though it is worth saying clearly that he is not invincible. During this period, Luffy also develops 2 conscious spatial manipulation techniques. The compression technique, the Limitless's defensive core, he refines and extends deliberately, but he also develops something new, an expansion technique, a sudden spatial release that projects force outward. Once both exist independently, he combines them into a simultaneous compression and expansion attack where the 2 forces cancel against each other to produce an obliterating strike. He names it the Gum Gum Infinity Cannon because he thinks the name is funnier than anything Rayleigh suggests. The New World wastes no time calibrating against this version of Luffy. Dressrosa is the first proof that the Limitless is a point defense, not an area defense. Doflamingo's awakening converts all of Dressrosa's environment into operational string attacking from every direction simultaneously. And while the compression field works in every direction at once, it covers Luffy, not a city. He wins, but the art teaches him that scale is a completely different problem from speed. From there, the whole Cake Island introduces Big Mom, and her Haki is the first Emperor tier signature the Six Eyes have to navigate in active combat. She does not just have more Haki than anyone Luffy has fought. The structure of it is more complex, with her soul-based homies, Prometheus, Zeus, and Napoleon, each carrying distinct extensions of her will that the Six Eyes track as separate entities simultaneously. Luffy always knows exactly where they are without looking for them. That does not make her less terrifying. It just makes fighting her more legible, which is a genuinely different thing. Then comes Katakuri, whose future sight sees seconds ahead in time. The Six Eyes sees the present moment at absolute resolution. Intent legible the instant it forms, which approximates but does not replicate what future sight provides. Katakuri sees the future. Luffy reads the present with 0 latency. Neither fully cancels the other, and the fight resolves through Luffy's refusal to stop. Because what he has never needed to defeat Katakuri is better perception. He needs to be willing to get hit until he understands the rhythm. That has not changed. Wano is the first time the Six Eyes read something that does not quite feel like a person. Kaido's Haki is not precise like Shanks or structurally complex like Big Mom. It feels like geological weight, centuries of continuous fighting compressed into density by the simple existence of never losing. The Six Eyes can read it. They just do not make it comfortable. His Thunder Bagua falls into the same structural category as Rokugan, as concussive force that propagates through matter on contact rather than crossing space toward Luffy. The Limitless cannot intercept this, so Luffy is not unconscious in their first encounter, the same as in canon, for the same reason. Where the Six Eyes do help is everything around Kaido, reading the Haki lanes through the chaos of Onigashima, tracking the position and intent of every combatant simultaneously across a burning island while managing his own fights. He is the most informed fighter in the building. He still gets knocked off the roof by someone whose power simply does not respect the rules the Limitless enforces. Then Gear 5 arrives, and this is where the scenario gets genuinely interesting. The Limitless is mathematical precision, the infinite division of space, producing consistent, predictable outcomes. Gear 5 Nika is total freedom from rules, physics yielding to the user's imagination. When both are active simultaneously, something unexpected happens, at least in this scenario's reading of how these two systems interact. Nika's freedom does not override the Limitless's mathematics. What it changes is what those mathematics produce. The Gear 5 awakening, which canon describes as capable capable of overriding the rules of a fight to match Luffy's imagination, applies the quality to the outputs of spatial compression. Incoming attacks still slow the near zero at the field, but what they do when the stop becomes unpredictable? They bounce, they deform, they ricochet in directions that follow rubber hose animation logic rather than Newtonian physics. The spatial division still operates correctly. Its results still become absurd. Kaido, whose entire worldview holds that haki transcends all, encounters something he cannot put into any framework he has ever built. Egghead is where the Six Eyes find an audience for the first time. Vegapunk detects the ocular phenomenon through his instruments and nearly loses his mind with excitement, pulling suppressed world government research files and starting to log data before the island's crisis even begins. He does not tell the world government about any of this, which is entirely consistent with how Vegapunk handles most things the world government would prefer did not exist. As for the fights, Lucci's Rokugan is still a structural problem in Egghead for the same reason it was at Eni's lobby, because it bypasses the Limitless by propagating through matter on contact. Luffy's management of it is more refined now, reading Lucci's weight shift into stance much faster than he could as a teenager, making the technique genuinely harder to land. But it still works when it lands, and the canonical resolution holds. Zoro takes Lucci and Luffy focuses on the larger threat. Kizaru is the Limitless's strangest interaction for the same reason as always. He does not approach, he reconstitutes inside the field. In Gear 5, Luffy's response is not spatial at all. It is just the cartoon physics of the Nika fruit applied directly to light. Beams get absorbed, bounce, and refract into places nobody predicted, which already happens in canon Gear 5. Here, the Limitless compounds the absurdity, and Kizaru's composure faces its most sustained test in decades. But it is Saint J. Garcia's Saturn and the five elders in their awakened Zoan forms that represent the genuinely different problem. Their techniques carry the weight of 8 centuries of accumulated will, and the Limitless interacts with the weight inconsistently. Conventional physical approaches are still slow, something that has been pressing against the world from total concealment for 800 years, just does not approach the same way a fist does. Egghead establishes clearly that the Limitless is not sufficient against what the final saga is building toward, and Luffy escapes the island knowing it. By Elbaf in the final saga, the Six Eyes are reading haki signatures that have been accumulating for 800 years. Imu's is the most complex thing Luffy has ever tried to perceive. It does not read like a powerful fighter's haki, but the haki of something that has operated from total concealment for 8 centuries, pressing against the world from behind the scenes without ever having to step into it directly, dense in a way that is more geological than martial. The Six Eyes can read it, they cannot fully parse what they are reading. When Imu declares that Nika must give up or die, that this battle will divide the world, it lands on Luffy as a statement from something that has said similar words before and watched everything it said them to eventually end. Luffy laughs. He asks if Imu wants to fight him, and for the first time in 800 years, the Six Eyes register something shifting in what they perceive of Imu. Not quite fear, but something in the same neighborhood. The moment before something very old remembers what it felt like to be uncertain. Make sure to subscribe and smash the like button for more One Piece videos.